Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun scroll saw project video, I have a beautiful bird themed design from the latest issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing, Spring 2025 issue 98. For those curious, here is the magazine in my hands, and they are closing in on a massive 100 individual issues of this creative magazine for scroll saw woodworkers everywhere. And the design we're going to be doing today is the cover project. You can see a beautiful visual representation of the design we're going to be doing, and the article for it begins on page 18, and it says Blue Bayou Heron, customized as wall hanging with various woods and backing colors by Miss Judy Gail Roberts. She created the design, and sadly we lost Miss Judy last year in 2024, and my thoughts and prayers are with her family. Not only was that a loss for her family, but it was also a loss for the scroll saw woodworking community as well, because she produced some amazing and fantastic designs specializing in the intarsia technique over at the Scroll Saw, and several of her patterns have been featured in previous issues of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. But the full-size pattern is located in the full-size pattern pull-out section in the magazine, and that's one thing I really love about Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazines is they have the full-size patterns included in the magazine. So when you go to photocopy them at the photo place or anything like that, you do not have to do any guesswork on how big or how small to make the patterns. They are to the full size. But the pattern has been photocopied and attached to our material with clear packing tape, and I'm going to be using some basic upcycled 1/2 inch construction grade plywood. And you guys know why I like to use this. It's a very easy material to work with, but it can potentially break or chip away because construction grade plywood is not technically meant for scroll saw woodworking. So I'll be very careful during the scrolling process, and I'll take my time and let the blade do the work. But it has some beautiful details in it in this oval frame. It kind of looks like a porthole of a ship, like you're looking out and you can see the beautiful bird in the distance. But we will cut that out. And that 1/2 inch plywood really takes paint, stain, and clear coat exceptionally well, in my opinion, and finishes up nicely. For the backer board, we're going to be using a basic piece of scrap 1/4 inch plywood I found laying around, and I have already spray painted it a nice blue, and it has dried. I spray painted it the other day. That way it would give it ample time to dry. Since we are still in the cooler months, it takes a lot of time for paint, stains, and clear coats to dry out here in the workshop. I am ready for spring, my friends. But since everything is pretty much prepped and ready to go, and we are ready to begin, let's move the camera and drill the pilot holes and get started. And over here on the drill press, we are taking a drill bit and drilling out all of the pilot holes for internal cutting. I still use the drill press a lot out in the workshop, and you'll note that I have a backer board behind the scroll saw work to prevent blowout of the pilot holes on the reverse side. But after all of the pilot holes are drilled, we will head over to the scroll saw, and we are ready to begin scrolling. For all of the scrolling on this project, I'll be using a number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through all of the material exceptionally well with minimal chip out. And as with all scroll saw projects, I'm beginning with some of the smaller details before proceeding to the larger internal cuts. I seen this pattern, and I knew I would have to cut it out and bring it to life in a visual aspect over here on the platform for you guys to hopefully view and enjoy. The blue heron is a beautiful rustic bird, and I have actually seen it for myself out on the historic Hall River that runs through Burlington. They are beautiful birds indeed, and I know bird watching is a very popular pastime and hobby for a lot of people. But I am just slowly working on all of the internal details. And one thing that is nice about a nature themed project, if you get a little bit out of line, you can sometimes make it part of the pattern itself, depending on what the pattern calls for, because there are no straight lines out in nature. And that is why a lot of people like to use spiral blades to cut out landscapes and animal and people portraits because of that rounded appearance. But I still prefer using a straight number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade. I hope that makes sense. But here we are in the close-up portion, and you guys can see that I'm taking my time and I'm letting the blade do the work, and I'm being as loyal as I possibly can be to that cut line. And just going along here and cutting out all of the lines for the bird's feathers. They were a little bit tedious to cut out due to the small and tight nature of that cut. But now I will cut between its legs here. And the project does have some of those tight V-turns, and you can see how I've done that. I went in one side of the V-cut and backed the blade back out and went into the other side to taper that V-point down as fine as the pattern called for. And working with upcycled construction grade plywood, that is not traditionally a material you think of when you think of scroll saw woodworking, it does have a tendency to want to grab because of the layers of the rough material that makes up plywood, and it also has a tendency to want to chip out and break away. So I'm just taking my time as always and letting the blade do the work. Here we are doing the final internal cut, and that is just the biggest cut that I saved for last. That's what I always try to do with scroll saw projects. But I will come around the Spanish moss on the branches here, and I will come back around. All in all, it took me around 40 minutes to scroll everything out completely from start to finish. But now we can retension the blade after doing some cleanup and do that final long outside perimeter cut to release the piece from the waste wood. If you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. But when we come back around here, we will take the piece to the workbench and remove it from the waste wood and see the beautiful scroll work we've just done, and we will head over to sanding with 180 grit Klingspor Woodworking Shop sandpaper and the vibrating palm sander, and I'm being very careful with small circular motions so I do not break away any of that delicate scroll work. And then I gave the piece a splash of color with a very light Minwax wood stain that still allowed the natural grains and textures of our material to shine through. And I'm being sure to squish the sponge brush down to get stain on all of the nooks and crannies, and I wiped off all of the excess and hung it on a hook to dry. And when it was dry to the touch, I glued it to the backer board with medium grade CA glue and activator. Keep in mind we had spray painted the backer board on a different day so it could dry completely. But I will allow the piece to dry and cure for around 5 minutes. That way I know for sure that the glue has properly bonded. And then I'll come back and remove the clamps, and we'll head over to the scroll saw for the final time to flush trim the piece to the frame. And if you guys would like to try this pattern, it's available in the Spring 2025 issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. But now all of the scroll saw work is done, and we'll do some flush sanding over at the belt sander after throwing away the scrap piece in the wood stove. And this just smooths everything out and cleans it up. And after I do this, it'll be time for the final bit of staining, which will be staining the border here all the way around to give it the appearance that it's one solid piece of material. And we will stain the back as well. And once this dries to the touch, it'll be time for finishing. And for finishing, I used several coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss. And once it dried, the project was complete. And here we have the completed Blue Bayou Heron, cut out completely over on the scroll saw from start to finish, and it finished up beautifully. Really, really beautiful bird theme design here. Thank you once again to the late Miss Judy Gale Roberts for the beautiful design from the newest issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. It took me around 40 minutes to scroll the project out completely from start to finish, and that is because of the material I used in today's video. Keep in mind the main bulk of the scroll saw work here, the half-inch material, is just basic half-inch upcycled off the shelf construction grade plywood, and that is not a material that is commonly associated with fine scroll saw woodworking. That is commonly associated with, like building houses and buildings and things like that. And for the scroll saw, you are more commonly associated with hardwoods, exotic woods, and of course the popular Baltic birch plywood when it comes to scroll saw work. But this material here just allows me to go down memory lane and relive all of those memories of my grandfather teaching me scroll saw woodworking out in this workshop at the age of 14, because this was the type of material he was teaching me on, and it's the same material that I completed some of my very first intermediate and advanced scroll saw work with. So it's just cool to go down memory lane, and I do like to use it from time to time for that reason. But even though it is basic plywood, I think it finished up beautifully. And even though I was careful as I could be, and due to the nature of it being plywood, I still had some small areas chip away due to the nature, as I said, of that material. But the backer board is just basic 1/4-inch material, and of course that cut very smoothly over at the scroll saw because I use it all the time, and everything tied together once we added the color and the clear coat. For a finish, I used standard finishing ways that I like to do over on the channel. I used a very light Minwax wood stain for the scroll work in the border and backer board, and then the backer board itself, of course, was painted before we ever even started filming because it is still cold here where I'm at in Burlington, North Carolina. But I think everything tied together once we added that Rust-Oleum clear gloss, and it really gave it a nice glossy appearance. And this is just a standard way for me for finishing projects out here in the workshop. Of course, the sky's is the limit with every scroll saw project you come across. If you really wanted to make the project look like it was out in the bayou, you could actually add some splashes of green or acrylic craft paint in here to make it look like it was out in that swampy area and everything where all the gators and crocodiles are. So that would be a great visual interpretation. Or if you wanted to cut this out of solid wood and cut it out of thicker material, that would be an even slower cut over on the scroll saw. You could of course go in with resins or colored epoxy and make this a stained glass. I know bird watching is a very popular pastime and hobby for a lot of people, especially once springtime fully gets here. I am anticipating spring because we'll have milder days as well as longer days to enjoy everything. But it could be a stained glass that you could hang in the window if you put resin and all in it. You would of course not put a backer board on it then, but just again a different interpretation of how to use each and every scroll saw woodworking pattern and project you come across. But again, I'm really happy with how it came out. Thank you once again to the late Miss Judy Gale Roberts for the beautiful design featured in the newest issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine. As I said, it is the actual cover project of the magazine, and there is their version, and here is the one we made here today on camera. Again, it's just a visual learning tool to where I make these videos to where you guys can see the project made from start to finish, and hopefully inspire you guys to go out in your garage or workshops and try the design for yourselves. Once again, the full-size pattern is located in the pattern pull-out section that's included in each and every Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing that comes out. I love getting the full-size patterns. That way it's no guesswork on enlarging or shrinking them down. You just directly photocopy them. But I had a lot of fun in today's video, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video, and hopefully along the way you picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit along the journey of me making this beautiful bird themed project. But really, really cool. Had a lot of fun in today's video, and I hope you guys did too. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, and remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you guys. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.